And this is correct, except for a very important caveat. What if the Department of War, in order to continue the campaign against Iran, decided to draw down war reserve stocks in the Pacific and in Europe to levels that made it impossible for the United States to fight a war with China or Russia? Now, if you did this, if you were to do this, you could sustain the campaign against Iran until you literally run out of ammunition. Right now, we have run out of ammunition from a qualitative standpoint, meaning that the ammunition allocated for Middle Eastern conflict is gone, finished. There is no more left. But if we want to rob Peter to pay Paul, we could continue.
What if the greatest military threat isn't an enemy, but running out of the weapons needed to fight? Former UN weapons inspector Scott Ritter believes today's conflicts are exposing serious limits in military stockpiles, diplomacy, and global strategy. In this interview, he argues that the decisions being made now could shape the next generation of international conflicts.
But here comes the dangerous part. And this is what people need to reflect on, just how utterly stupid and dangerously stupid Pete Hegseth is and his bosses. As we speak, the Pentagon is redoing the nuclear posture of the United States, nuclear posture policies, to include nuclear employment plans. These are very important documents. Why? Well, we now have to envision a war with China where we don't have enough ammunition to fight China. We now have to envision a war with Russia where we don't have enough ammunition to fight Russia. You remember Christopher Donahue, the recent commander of U.S. forces in Europe? I think it was January of last year. He came out and he said, Kaliningrad's only 47 miles. Wow, we could take it out tomorrow. We've been planning this. We're ready for it. We're going to do this. We got this in the bag. Well, no. First of all, the planning that he was done was predicated on a AI program called Maven. Maven was used to attack Iran, and we now know that Maven doesn't work because Maven just attacks the wrong things. It's stupid. So he was wrong. But let's say Maven did work. The ammunition necessary for Maven to succeed no longer exists. It's been taken away to the Middle East, thanks to Pete Hegseth. So now, if we were going to fight the Russians, we would have to, first of all, we would run out of ammunition very quickly, which means then we need to have something to replace it. And so now new war plans are being written as we speak that talk about the liberal use of tactical nuclear weapons early on in any conflict with Russia and China. Well, there's no such thing as a limited nuclear war. A tactical nuclear weapon cannot be used in isolation. So if we were to do these war plans, we're committing suicide. That's where we are today. This is the danger of what the Trump administration has done. There are ramifications. And I just want people to understand, as we speak, and I've been warning about this a long time. I know there's haters out there. Scott's been crying wolf forever. There's no nuclear weapons. There's no nuclear danger. As we speak, the United States is redoing its nuclear war plans so that early on in any potential conflict with China and Russia, we would have no choice but to liberally use. That means not just once, we're going to sprinkle them around, tactical nuclear weapons to compensate for the fact that we have no conventional weapons capable of fighting a peer level opponent like China and Russia. That's where we are. This war in Iran is making the world a far more dangerous place, and people need to wake up.
Ritter argues that the consequences extend far beyond one regional conflict. In his view, if conventional military resources continue to shrink, future conflicts could become far riskier because military planners would have fewer conventional options available. Whether viewers agree or not, this warning becomes the foundation for everything discussed next.
Well, again, the same answer as before. We're dealing with a lot of speculation here. We're seeing reports. We know that oftentimes the media space is used by multiple parties to achieve information dominance for whatever reasons. But I said this a long time ago on this show. In fact, we can hit rewind. I said that I think ultimately there will be a face-saving deal made in the Strait of Hormuz between Iran and Oman. And then Oman will cut a side deal with the United States. That appears to be what's happening here. There is no direct negotiation between Iran and the United States. There's a negotiation between Iran and Oman about opening up the Strait of Hormuz. What the status of collecting tolls is? Will it be deferred? Will it be eliminated? Don't know. But there will be a side deal between Oman and the United States that'll give the United States the pretense that it is responsible for the opening up of the Strait of Hormuz. And because they have leverage with Oman, they haven't ceded the totality of control to Iran. We know that's absurd, but this is the political face-saving mechanism that could be made available and appears to be part of this negotiation. What the Iranian government does, I don't know, because they're not in the mood for face-saving gestures to Donald Trump. One of the things they've said is the United States has to stop threatening that there can be no deal as long as these threats. Well, it was interesting. Right before we came on, I was just scrolling through, and again, it's dangerous to scroll through internet feeds, but it appears that the Treasury Department has lifted the terrorist designation on 3 IRGC entities that had previously. So it appears the United States is doing some, because Iran has always said things has to be done up front. We're not going to do something and wait for America to act. And so it appears that there are things happening right now to make this deal possible. That if this is true, the Treasury Department is doing away with certain classifications of IRGC that will free them from sanctions. It's creating a new reality, a legal framework of reality. These are things that Iran had demanded be done, and it appears that some of them are at least being done. Again, will it be to the satisfaction of the Iranian government? I don't know. Can't speak for them. What I do know is that this is a temporary measure linked to the MOU that basically resets the clock on the requirement for 60 days for the United States and Iran to come up with a nuclear deal. And therein lies the rub, because Iran's just not going to do anything on that front.
The conversation shifts from military strategy to diplomacy. Ritter argues that negotiations surrounding the Strait of Hormuz could provide temporary stability, but he also believes the broader dispute remains unresolved. His point is that political agreements may delay confrontation without fully removing the underlying tensions.
My understanding is that Benjamin Netanyahu is in a political fight for his life right now, that his party is not doing well at the polls. In the coming election, he will probably lose the prime minister spot and open himself up for prosecution and imprisonment. That's my feeling right now. And to Benjamin Netanyahu, that's all that matters. He doesn't care about Israel. He cares about Benjamin Netanyahu. He's the Israeli version of Donald Trump, a narcissist wrapped in the pretense of a national leader. And the same thing holds true with the totality of the Israeli political scene. They're pushing each other around, jostling to see who's going to be number one. There are certain realities. Let's look at the Israeli economy. It's non-functioning. So how could you say this is good for Israel? It's a non-functioning economy. Let's look at the Israeli military. They have no air defense. And you want to speak about leverage? The commanding general of U.S. forces in Europe has told the Pentagon, if you don't get me more destroyers, because basically our ballistic missile defense shield globally is heavily dependent upon Aegis class destroyers equipped with SM-3, SM-6 interceptors. If you don't get me more dedicated to Europe, I'm going to have to withdraw destroyers that are currently being used to protect Israel, because the priority must be protection of the homeland. The Israelis are like, what? You're doing what? You can't take that ship away because that's the only thing that shoots down missiles. We're out of missiles. We're out of missile defense. Only the United States has missiles. And now you're talking about removing this. And I think this is also leverage against Israel to let them know that you're not number one. Listen to that statement he made. It's very rare you get a senior military official to make such a statement. If I don't get another destroyer, I'll have to pull one off from Israel because defending America is more important than defending Israel. Ooh. I think that was a heck of a signal. And I think it's a signal that's been repeated over and over and over again to Netanyahu, which is why Israel is suddenly compliant. Now, We all know that the Israelis sit there and they just blabber their mouths because it's all about political posturing. But the reality is, what is Israel doing? And the answer is not a damn thing. Then the next question is, why not? Because they can't. If Israel got opened up to attacks, Israel cannot defend itself.
Ritter challenges common assumptions about the regional balance of power. He argues that political pressures, military constraints, and dependence on outside support have changed the strategic picture. Whether viewers agree with his assessment or not, it represents a significant shift from the narrative presented earlier.
I mean, words don't kill people normally. They could lead to policies to kill people. But saying you're going to destroy Iran and destroying Iran are two totally different things. As you've pointed out, the weapons shortage that exists in the United States has led to different mechanisms of employing kinetic violence against Iran. We are running very short of long-range standoff weapons delivered by aircraft. And so what we've had to do with aircraft is we use what are called JDAMs, which are these the bombs with the satellite guidance packages on them that allow for gliding. So if you drop it at a fairly high altitude, the bomb can glide in over defined space and strike a target. You don't go very deep with this because you have to keep the airplane standing off from air defense. We use HIMARS, and which is the GLMRS munition. We use ATACMS. Then we use the precision strike munition. My understanding is that we're all but out of precision strike munitions. I think there are only 90 to begin with. We fired 80 as of last month, and there's 10 left. Can't do much with 10 weapons. ATACMS, we've basically run the supply dry. We have to strip ATACMS away from South Korea and from Europe. And as soon as we do that, then we lose, whatever potential we had. We know there's not much potential because the Ukrainians use ATACMS and HIMARS against the Russians, and the Russians have figured out how to jam the GPS signal and how to spoof the inertial guidance and basically disrupt these attacks so that the percentage of success is actually very low. But Iran, may or may not have the spoofing capability. I don't know, what the battle damage is being done to Iran. My guess is probably Russia shared the ability to deal with HIMARS and ATACMS, and the Iranians are implementing those measures as well. But when we're using them because we don't have enough standoff weapons, we've depleted our Tomahawk stock. So we are bombing basically the western edge and southern edge of Iran with what we have, but we can't go deep.
Returning to the interview's central theme, Ritter argues that logistics now matter as much as battlefield strategy. He believes weapons shortages and production limits are placing practical constraints on military planning, making sustained operations increasingly difficult.
It's about the weapons systems, and particularly the big one is air defense. Let's just make no ifs, ands, or buts about it. The PAC-3 missile is the only missile that works when it comes to Russia's ballistic missile capabilities. Drones, you can have other things work, but the PAC-3 is the only one that has a snowball's chance in hell of shooting down an Iskander. Virtually no chance to shoot down a Zircon or a Kinzhal. In a Oreshnik, it'll never happen. But the PAC-3 did give them the ability to blunt, some of the Iskander attacks and then free up capacity to take on, the calibers and then the drones. They're out of missiles. They don't have any left. I think there was a 57 missile attack the other night. They fired one, their last PAC-3, and that was it. Last night there was an attack. There was no missile defense. It's all gone. And this is the end of Ukraine. If Ukraine can't defend itself, and it can't defend itself, that means that Russia will just run free. There's talk that Russia has brought in a North Korean artillery brigade that fires a Iskander M type analog, that up to 120 of these missiles have been brought in with this brigade. which means that Russia will never run out of firepower. And Ukraine will never recover. Donald Trump has not only lied to Ukraine about licensing of Patriot. I mean, everybody heard what he said in Ankara. I'm giving you a license. Yeah, we have to go through this, but that won't be a problem. Well, it turned out it's a big problem, and they're not going to get the license. Then they came in and said, we need to just give us 300 missiles. Trump went, no, we don't have 300 missiles, and the missiles we have are going to defend us, not you. Nobody else has missiles. There's some in storage, but Europe's at the point right now where they can't draw down and defend themselves. And Europe right now is sort of seeing the writing on the wall that Russia's going to win in Ukraine. So Europe's no longer interested in throwing good money after bad.
The interview closes by widening its focus beyond a single conflict. Ritter argues that prolonged wars consume resources, reshape alliances, and force governments into increasingly difficult strategic choices. Whether viewers accept his conclusions or not, his consistent message is that military power ultimately depends on industrial capacity, logistics, and political decisions. Throughout this conversation, Scott Ritter presents one consistent argument. The greatest risks may come not only from conflict itself, but from the limits of sustaining it. He believes military stockpiles, diplomacy, and long-term strategy will play a decisive role in shaping future global security. Whether you agree with his conclusions or challenge them, the interview raises important questions about how major powers prepare for and try to avoid the next stage of international conflict.